If by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on, if you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but are none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
You will be a man, my son, about the unforgiving minute. That is Rudyard Kipling in the great poem "If." As Jack Maxey said, they knew how to raise him back in the old empire, right? I know we're going to get blown up for this, but that's okay. Very powerful film made. Dan Scavino tweeted that out. Michael Moore, I'm sure it's not the Michael Moore, but another Michael Moore, somebody I think made that. Absolutely incredible. For the radio audience, that was Rudyard Kipling's "If," and it was a short film made about Donald J. Trump, and very powerful. So we're going to get into all of that today. Today is the rally day here in the nation's capital. Stop the steal throughout the nation. You're in the War Room, live from the nation's capital. It's the 14th of September, the year of our Lord, 2020. We got Maggie Vanderberg is now back from her assignment down in Georgia. So Fog City Midge is here. She's going to be covering the rally bands, Jack Maxey, Stephen K. Bannon. John Fredericks Radio Network, Real America's Voice, the streaming platform for the Trump Revolution. Ben Bergquam and others, Real America's Voice, will be covering the rally all day live. We're going to be going to them in the 11 o'clock hour. Also Newsmax TV. And, of course, G News and GTV, they're streaming all day. Another rally going on. We got a lot going on. The new federal state of China and the whistleblower movement are down here to support American democracy, support President Trump, and particularly to point out the Chinese Communist Party's involvement in all of this. Everything from the pandemic, which was initiated by them, all the way through what's going on in this election. And of course, the great Lynn Wood down in Georgia, which we're going to get into much more detail later. Lynn Wood is pointing the finger to the Chinese Communist Party. It is the Indian commemoration and celebration of Diwali, which is the Festival of Lights. I want to bring in now Dave Ramaswamy, one of our contributors that's been so good on the analytics and the numbers. Dave, we're going to get to, in a little while, John Voight and what John Voight said about this forces of evil and the forces of light, darkness and light. What is that President Trump has celebrated and commemorated Diwali in the White House, I think, every year since he's been president. What is the festival? Why is it important? And what is this about darkness and light?
Good morning, Steve, and to everybody in the War Room. Happy Diwali to all of you. Today is a very special day, it's celebrated by over 1 billion people around the world. As you mentioned, it's a festival of lights, and it's celebrated by Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, Jains, and actually people of all religious persuasions, because not just a religious significance to this day, but also a spiritual significance. and that is it commemorates the victory of good over evil, the victory of light over darkness, and the victory of knowledge over ignorance. It reminds us to always remember the sacred and divine light that is within us and to bring it forward to make the world a better place. And the president has rightly, you mentioned, celebrated Diwali. He was in India earlier this year, and where he brought up this very fact that what unites America and India and also other religious pluralistic societies is this respect for the individual and the recognition that there's this divine light that exists within us, which calls us to fulfill our highest potential. And that's what it's about. And especially at this critical time in our democracy, it's worth remembering that.
Let me ask you, Dave. I know you're actually getting ready to come down. You're going to be part of the rallies today, the Stop the Steal and other rallies in support of President Trump. Are we at this moment right now? We've had Sidney Powell's been not just on this show, but she's been on doing a lot of media the last couple of days. Lynn Wood, who filed this really, I think, quite significant lawsuit in federal court yesterday in Georgia. They have been positioning this, as we have, as a fight of good versus evil, a fight of light versus darkness. Do you see it in the same context?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason I say it, and I echo what these great legal minds have worked on and demonstrated in the court, which is the values we're fighting for are universalistic, are pluralistic. It's not about a party. It's about a philosophy, about liberty, about freedom and equality for all Americans. So, and it's about election integrity. It cuts across religious lines, what I call ethnic lines, linguistic lines. So it's a universal fight that we're on.
Dave, thank you. Can you get the Twitter handle? You're going to be on next week. We're going to start going and doing deep dives on analytics. Steve Cortez is going to be joining us on Monday. Dave Ramaswamy during the week. We're going to have a kind of a roll out the big guns on analytics. We've got a number of other people going to be joining us to actually walk through the math and actually see how this thing was stolen and see the patterns that are involved and how this was obviously stolen with these mail-in ballots and what the lawsuits are going to go. Remember, from the beginning, you can't certify this vote. The vote is uncertifiable. That means it's going to go definitely to the House of Representatives, where President Trump will win and really confirm his victory on November 3rd with legal ballots. Dave, what's your Twitter? What's your Parler? How do people get to you?
Yes, Steve, I'm a Dave Ramaswamy Parler, and I want to wish you and the War Room and all your listeners a happy Diwali, and may the light of the divine spread among you and bring forth more peace and prosperity in the world.
Dave Ramaswamy, thank you very much. One of the guys, one of the driving forces in back of the Howdy Modi operation. I want to thank you, Jay Kansara, everybody that we've worked with so hard. We're great supporters of Modi and the entire nationalist movement in India. Thank you very much, sir. Now I want to go to, if we can play the guys in Denver. And today is a very special show. We've got a massive rally here just right down the street, right down the road on Constitution Avenue, I guess Pennsylvania Avenue, where they kind of converge at the Freedom Plaza, where it's going to start. There'll be speakers there, I think, starting around noon. Fog City Midge will be down there live. Hopefully we'll catch her before the end of the show when she departs. It's going to head up to the Supreme Court. I think there's going to be other speakers there at the Supreme Court, a big rally. There's also another rally down by the Washington Monument, where the new federal state of China has their own rally to support President Trump. There's another rally tomorrow with Brandon Strzok and the team here from Walkaway. They're going to have their rally. We're going to try to have all of it. We had him in for the show yesterday. It was spectacular. So I want to go. Let's play I want to stay on this theme of what the stakes are here, because sometimes we get too we're in the grind, as Bill McGinley would say. We're in the grind. So, and the grind is about the details. The grind is about granularity. But every now and again, you got to pull the camera back and make sure you see exactly. You got to have that establishing shot, right? The establishing shot here is forces of light and forces of darkness. Can we play the John Voight? Let's roll.
My fellow Americans, I stand here with all that feel as I do, disgusted with this lie that Biden has been chosen, as if we all don't know the truth. And when one tries to deceive, we know that one can't get away with it. There will be a price to pay. The ones who are jumping for joy now are jumping toward the horror they will be in for, because I know that the promises being made from the left to the American people will never come to be. My friends of all colors, races, and religions, this is now our greatest fight since the Civil War, the battle of righteousness versus Satan. Yes, Satan, because these leftists are evil, corrupt, and they want to tear down this nation. We must not allow this. We must fight this corruption that has taken over and fight for the good that seems lost. Let us give our trust to God and for Trump's victory, because we all know this ballot count is corruption like they are. So let us not back down. Let us fight this fight as if it is our last fight on earth. As Muhammad Ali said, it's not over till the last punch you have. God bless.
John Voight, right? Forces of Light, Forces of Darkness. I want to go now to Fog City Midge, Jack Maxey, Greg Manns. Got a couple of minutes here. Fog City, what just happened? We just had a very interesting development. We're live here in the nation's capital. What just happened down on Pennsylvania Avenue by the rally?
So people are already congregating. Apparently people were already out there even 2 hours ago. So that's 4 hours before this thing even starts. People started congregating at Freedom Plaza. And I just got a text from a friend who's down there. And she said that President Trump just drove by in the beast vehicle, and he actually had on a MAGA hat and he waved to the crowd. And I'm getting texted blurry pictures, but you can see it. It's pretty incredible.
You never know where President Trump's going to show up. You just got back from Georgia. Do people understand, you think, you were down with some Second Amendment types, do people understand the stakes here? They understand that this is more than just counting a few ballots in Pennsylvania. Do they understand what the stakes of this is?
No. They have no idea. And I actually spoke to a couple influencers who are massive voices in the conservative movement, people with over 1 million followers. And they're all focused on making sure that Trump becomes a president. They want to make sure that he's got it. They were asking for reassurance from me. I said, yes, absolutely. You got to watch War Room. We go through all of the fraud and exposing all of these things. But I said, what we really need to be focusing on is Georgia. And then they're like, oh, come on, Georgia. It's really about the presidency. I'm like, no. That's going to be, we got that. Everyone needs to be focused on Georgia because Hollywood is sinking billions of dollars. Silicon Valley, all of these entities in California are trying to affect the outcome of this race in Georgia.
Okay, let's take a short commercial break. We got to play our exit music. It'd be terrific, Denver. We had so many great. The first segment was so good this morning, right? We start with Rudyard Kipling's "If." We got Dave Ramaswamy on Diwali, the festival of light and darkness in the Hindu religion, and now we've got and we had John Voight. What a great way to start! And Maggie.
War Room, Pandemic, with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room, Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
We're here on every distribution platform known to man. I think we're now getting close to the top 10 podcast in the nation in every area, and that's because you, the audience, right? We're at radio, we're live streaming, we're on cable, we're on satellite, we're everywhere, we're ubiquitous. And the reason is that this information has got to get out. We're the show that is too tough to kill as much as they try. Why do they want to kill the show? They want to kill the show because they don't want the deplorables to have access to information. The way I do this show is exactly the way I run my advisory business and run all the, if you're in the boardroom, right, with decision makers, and you lay out what the analysis is, you lay out what the facts are. They have to come to their own decision. We try to go out of our way to tell you not to tell you what to think. As Maggie will tell you, the key in Hollywood and filmmaking is show, don't tell, right? What we try to do consistently is show and not tell. And so that's why they're trying to kill the show. It's obvious, right? But we're going to, look, it's ubiquitous. They can't kill it. It's a show that's too tough to kill. Focusing on the signal, not the noise, and giving you tomorrow's news today. Today we're actually, and we want to kind of raise the stakes here and make sure everybody understands what's going on, because you're going to see, I think, in the coming days and weeks ahead, as we grind through these lawsuits, as you grind through the pattern recognition of the voting, as you grind through the granularity and the details. And remember, the firestorm hasn't started yet. The mainstream media and the opposition of President Trump, a little bit on their back heels. The feckless Joe Biden and his feckless, chief of staff, Ron Klain. That would be Ron Klain we have an epidemic, the epidemic tweet in February, I think February 13th, right? That was one of the things, one of the tweets that led to, in that mindset, that led to the deaths in New York City, okay? That kind of arrogance. Whereas we in the War Room Pandemic, starting a month before, we're trying to cover this, and we had a broad range of opinion, of people who thought it was a hoax to others who thought it was a pre-planned biological weapon from the Chinese Communist Party, and everything in between, to give you the nomenclature, to give you process, to give you the critical path, to make sure that you can understand so you can come to your own conclusions. In our audience, it has a broad range of what people think, and that's fine. Remember, why are they trying to kill the show? It's very simple. They understand this audience is what's meaningful, not us. We're just actors on the stage. We're just we're passing through here in a period of time, trying to use our human agency, right, to fight this righteous fight. But we're totally interchangeable. In fact, we've had so many people. Jason Miller, we've had, Greg Mans came. We've had Jack Maxey, who ran the War Room in 18, in the engine room. We got other people in the engine room. We got other people come up here. Maggie's now part of the show. We're all interchangeable. What's not interchangeable is the permanence. What's the permanence? It's the deplorables in Lao Beijing. This is the most important election in the history of the Republic. That's why we're not going to back down. That's why we're not going to give up. That's why we can't give up. We have an obligation, a direct obligation to, what is it, Jack, 13 or 14 generations that have come before us? We have an obligation to those generations and to the future. But that's why what they want to kill, and this is why Trump's just another instrument. He's a very imperfect instrument. Right? Why are they trying to kill Trump? And remember, they're not trying to defeat. This is not normal politics like back in the old days. This is not Nixon. Nixon went up to Hyannisport. I think it was 2 weeks after the 1960 election, and had lunch with John F. Kennedy up at their house in Hyannisport. And the Kennedys thought that it was a huge deal. He accepted because they thought he was going to call, and he was told by all the Republicans, they stole this from you in Chicago. The Daily Machine stole this from you, and we can prove it. We can absolutely prove it. And Nixon said, no. I'm not going to do that. And they went and they had, both of them were World War II veterans. Nixon, I think, was a supply corps officer in the South Pacific on the islands where Kennedy fought with PT-109, the patrol boat in the Solomons, right? In the slot, I think it was. And they had Nixon actually liked Kennedy. He admired Kennedy. Right, he knew he ended up hating the Kennedy machine that treated him poorly. But that was a different time of politics, right? Even everything that came from the 1950s and everything that came from the investigations with McCarthy and everything that came from, we now know, Jack, from the Venona papers, the infiltration of the State Department and others, right? And Treasury Department. Was it Harry Dexter White? These are known communist agents, known KGB agents, all proven in the light of day later, right? I.F. Stone, Harry Dexter White, all of these guys, these were KGB agents, right? Even the viciousness of then is like powder puff compared to today, right? Today is, they're not trying to defeat Donald J. Trump, they're trying to destroy Donald J. Trump and everybody around him. That's why you see this thing about the law firms. Why are the law firms quitting? Because the law firms are being doxxed. The law firms The clients are calling up and saying they got to go. And why do they want to destroy Trump? Not defeating. It's very simple. Not in the room, not in the deal. Donald Trump is the first individual that has stood up and put the deplorables in the room. Remember, John McCain dismissed you guys on the floor of the Senate, the hobbits, right? The hobbits. Barack Obama, his new book, Barack Obama lays it all out. Barack Obama says, "Hey, this is all a reaction to the election of a black guy," and it started the rot. I think it's a quote. The rot started with Sarah Palin, in the Tea Party movement, right? Charles Koch's out there yesterday. Charles Koch's a great man. Have tremendous admiration for Charles Koch, and he comes out yesterday in his book and says, "Hey, I made a mistake. You know that Tea Party movement. I thought I was going to be stopping big government and cutting my taxes more, but I made a big mistake." And the implication there, it's a nativist, a racist, operation. Nothing could be farther from the truth. That's what we had yesterday, Brandon Strzok here, and you see this coalition. The reason they have to destroy Trump and they have to destroy him at this election is what Jack Maxey said. He said, "Hey, you watch," Maxey called, he says, "you watch Florida. He's going to get 50% of the Hispanic vote. He got 47%, right? You've got Cube. You've got these rappers, guys that are coming up and talking about economic nationalism, talking about access to capital. The head of BET is talking about it. And I've said this for years. There's a new political realignment coming. Every bit as deep and every bit as significant as 1932, right? During the Great Depression, when the Democratic Party really formed around working class folks, and you're seeing that realignment right now, and they must kill it. This is nationalist versus globalist. We're not going to back down. So Maggie,
yes.
Talk to us about today. You're about to bolt out of here. You're going to be live down in the MAGA folks. It's full MAGA all day long in the nation's capital. What's going on?
I'm so excited. I've been going through the internet. I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and there are already so many photos of this event. It's already massive. And keep in mind, we're still an hour and a half out from the beginning of this event. So what's crazy is I went to their website, marchfortrump.com, and it's down. You can't access it. I don't know why, but it's not there anymore. But be assured, everyone, this march is happening today at noon at Freedom Plaza in Washington, D.C. On Twitter, March for Trump is trending along with Million MAGA March. That's the other hashtag that they're using. And these are top trending under the politics section, which is a big deal on Twitter for a conservative hashtag to be trending. And then I also wanted to let you know, if you look at that hashtag, you can see a ton of photos, and also a lot of trolls are out using that hashtag too to try to mock our event. And they've kind of commandeered it, and they're posting pictures of pancakes, which doesn't really make any sense, but
I'll take a short stack.
Yeah, I'd take some MAGA pancakes. Why not?
Where's Freedom Plaza is actually? Let's give people a location where it actually is. Freedom Plaza is where?
About 4 blocks from the White House, and near Pennsylvania Avenue.
It's on Pennsylvania.
Between Treasury and the FBI.
Okay, fine. Between Treasury and the FBI on Pennsylvania Avenue?
Yep, that's correct.
Down by Trump, it's the Freedom Plaza is right there by Trump Hotel?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. And they're going to march all the way up Pennsylvania. They're going to reverse President Trump's march on Inauguration Day, where he goes from the Capitol to the White House. Here, march and come up the hill on Constitution Avenue, go Pennsylvania Constitution, and come up and finish at the Supreme Court.
Yes, I think so.
And they're going to have, I think, speakers around 3 o'clock. There'll be speakers down at Freedom Plaza, a host of speakers, and then there'll be speakers at 3 o'clock. And so the other thing I want to say is that you've seen, this is not just people from the Mid-Atlantic or D.C. area. They're from all over the country?
Yeah, they're from all over the country. So my girlfriend flew out yesterday from Orange County, and she said there were about 15 people on her flight wearing MAGA hats. And they all started chit-chatting while they were waiting to get on the plane. And then they ended up taking a picture and making friends and exchanging numbers. And so that was just on their way here. But last night, I came from Savannah yesterday. There was another woman on my flight who said she was on her way to the march. And then when I was picking up my bags, multiple people came over and said, "We'll see you at the march tomorrow," because I was wearing my hat. So people knew where I was headed.
Why is this march important, and why is it important today?
Well, these people are coming out both because they can see that fraud occurred, and they want to stand up against the fraud and make it clear that we're not going to roll over and let the Democrats steal this election from us. And number 2, to also show their support for President Trump and let him know that we stand behind him, that we have not given up this fight, and we are in it, and we are prepared to show up and make our voices heard.
And so you're going to walk us through your coverage. We're going to try to get you. You're going to leave. You're going down to Freedom Plaza right now. You're going to be doing interviews. It's just going to be the Maggie's feel of the crowd. Well, what are you going to do?
Well, I'll probably try to get some crowd shots and get those out and posted online just because people need to see how many people are down there, and we need to try to capture this. I love to do interviews with Trump supporters. I just think it's a beautiful thing when you speak to the real deplorables and why they support this movement. And, I'd love to interview people who came as far as from California and people that came from all over the country and why they felt it was so important to come out and show their support this weekend.
Okay, we're going to deploy Maggie Vanderberg. Fog City Midge is going to depart. She's going to go down to the actual start of it. We're going to have some other people hopefully down there with her also. It looks like a big crowd. President Trump has already been out. Looks like he went by. I don't know if he's going to go out and hit a few balls today, but it looks like he's already. I know his team's working. We're going to talk. Rudy Giuliani's actually over at the campaign headquarters. We're going to have Rudy coming in later. We're going to go to Atlanta, talk to John Fredericks. We've got a lot of breaking news. We're going to get to you guys today. We're going to talk about Lynn Wood. Jack Maxey's going to go back to the receipts and talk about what we got here. Okay, Fog City Midge is deploying. We're going to have new federal state of China. All of it next.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
This was a well-planned, probably almost for 2 decades, attack to overthrow our government. Was it well done in the sense of trying to hide the fraud? Sure, but it was too massive. Donald Trump surprised even the enemy by the wide margins in which he won in the key states they had targeted to steal. So in the middle of the night, they started having to produce tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands, of fake paper ballots. They had set that up with COVID. So will this be resolved by the courts? Yes. But I don't believe that it necessarily has to be resolved by the courts before the people in this country fully recognize by the irrefutable evidence that Joe Biden is illegitimate, his votes were fraudulent, he tried to steal this election and he failed. I'm working specifically on a lawsuit that will be filed in Georgia where the Georgia election will have to be deemed unlawful and void because the Democrats got the Secretary of State in Georgia to enter into a consent settlement in litigation in March of this year where the Secretary of State substantively changed the rules of the election as they related to the absentee ballots. The law doesn't allow the Secretary of State to do that. It has to be done in a federal election by the state legislature.
Right, like in Pennsylvania.
Just like in Pennsylvania, just along the same legal grounds as Justice Alito ruled when he separated the ballots.
The sublime Howie Carr, one of the all-time greats, that's there with Lynn Wood, one of the lawyers, not actually working for the campaign. He individually filed a massive lawsuit in the state of Georgia. So we have North and South. We have Pennsylvania, one of the ground zeros. We got Georgia, and Georgia's a mess. And Lynn Wood's lawsuit is going to show you why people like the governor are in hiding, right? People like this lieutenant governor, the pretty boy, is rolling out talking nonsense on TV. That the Secretary of State saying, there's been, but, so what? And they're doing something now, as Jenny Beth Martin said yesterday, that's not about a recount. You can't recount illegitimate ballots, illegal ballots. This is the problem. Before we bring in John Fredericks on location, that was Lynn Wood in his voice. Very powerful. We're going to get this up. A very powerful interview by the one and only Howie Carr. Jack, you were the very first one. Once again, you've been banging on the table from the beginning for the provisional ballots up in Pennsylvania, Michigan. Like, where the heck are they? You've been on this like a dog on a bone also, saying, hey, and I think it's Stacey Abrams or the Clintons or something. This was a deal cut with the Democrats in the courts and had a consent. And you're saying, hey, I read this, I talk to lawyers, this thing looks pretty bulletproof. I don't know why no one's talking about it. What do we got? And then we're going to go to John Frederick.
Well, basically because the state of Georgia found that the Democratic Party, these are the parties to the suit, okay? The Democratic Party of Georgia, DPG, DSCC, DCCC, collectively the political party committees on one side versus Brad Raffensperger, Rebecca Sullivan, etc. And the whole purpose of this compromise settlement agreement between the Democratic Party and the aggrieved citizens of Georgia was to make sure that the signature requirements would follow the rules to the letter, because they had not been doing this in the past. So in order to sort of eliminate everybody's liability, they come to a compromise agreement that, yes, in the future we promise to agree by the rules. They have to promulgate the rules concerning signature matches to everybody. There is a very detailed process that one must go through with multiple witnesses, multiple people making the decisions on this basis. None of this occurred this time around in Georgia, and this agreement was just entered into in March of this year. So I'm in total agreement with the attorney, Mr. Wood, because these guys agreed that they would follow the rules just 6 months ago and now have not followed the rules. One thing else that I think everybody should start becoming aware of, this big con that has occurred across the nation. Much of it came about because of the coronavirus, right? This was what the
100%,
requirement
the CCP,
for all the
100%.
mail-in ballots and things like this. Now, the Republicans didn't have a primary in the spring, but the Democrats sure did. And don't think that they didn't do a dry run on this big grift in your own primaries, because nobody can tell me, I don't care who you are, nobody can tell me that Joe Biden is more popular in 2020 than Barack Obama was
Impossible.
in 2008.
Impossible.
Absolute impossibility.
Tariq, who's the black Tariq calls it the finesse.
The finesse.
He says
the big finesse.
He says the black community is going to be blamed for this, and he says it didn't happen. He said this guy didn't draw what Obama did. Obama's a legend, whether you like him or not. He's a legend.
Absolutely.
Joe Biden just another stiff wandering around a Toyota dealership up in Delaware. You're telling me that he's going to sit there and bench press the mullahs in Iran? He's going to bench press He's going to bench press Putin. He can't even get a national security briefing. He can't bench press anything.
I wanted to go back to Steve. You were talking earlier about Nixon going and being a gentleman and visiting Ken up in Massachusetts, and had to sit down two warriors who'd been in the fight. Let's remember something. In that situation, we were not dealing with a potential opposition candidate who was a giant security risk. John F. Kennedy was not reputed to have been in the pocket of the Soviets in the same way that Joe Biden's family clearly is in the pocket
Compromise.
of not just the communist Chinese, some very bad players in Romania, South America.
Yep.
These guys have a rogues gallery of friends and people who
Grifters.
give them money.
Grifters, just like the Clinton Foundation. They're all grifters. Okay, I want to go now to Georgia and to John Frederick. You heard both Lynn Wood on the Howie Carr show, and you heard Jack Maxey lay out the case. There's been mayhem down in Georgia. You've shifted the flag down there, John Fredericks. Give us a situation report. We got John Fredericks, but we don't have audio. We got him on mute. We got
have audio?
There he is.
Yeah, we got you. The ON-OFF switch. That's what you need.
No worries. Game on. That's basically what this is. This lawsuit that Linwood filed, very noted attorney, Steve and Jack and everybody in War Room. I mean, this is a serious lawsuit. This is a breach of the rules. Only the General Assembly can make these rules, and they were not followed. So it is possible that this thing ends up in the hands of the Supreme Court, no question about it. But the main thing is here right now, the outrage of Georgians who voted for Trump, many of them elected officials, absolutely beside themselves over the fact that we have this phony recount, this fraud recount. They don't have but one person watching for every 10 teams. That means one person has to observe 10 tables. Asinine. You can't do it. The Republican Party of Georgia, led by David Schaefer, has been all over this. He's saying, I've got the people. I've got them right here. Not going to cost you anything. Raffensperger, the Secretary of State Republican, refuses to let them in. So we'll get the same thing going on because he doesn't want to expose the corruption on his watch. Then you've got fraudulent ballots just being recounted through a machine by hand. This makes no sense. What they wanted was every single absentee ballot to be scrutinized. Is it legal? Does the address match? Are they registered to vote someplace else? Does the envelope signature match? Is it real? And if it is, fine. Let me just give you a stat. In the 2018 election between Stacey Abrams and Governor Brian Kemp, by the way, he has been totally AWOL, and I'll talk about that in a minute. 3.5%, Steve and Jack, 3.5% of the mail-in ballots were designated as invalid because they were fraudulent or they were not real. They were thrown out. 3.5% of the ballots thrown out. In this election in 2020, only 0.5%. Well, you add that 3% up, I mean, that's 100,000.
That's a victory for Trump. This is the key. Yeah, this is a victory for Trump.
That's a victory for Trump.
100%.
How did it go? Let me just ask you. With the number of absentee ballots going up,
yes,
50 times.
Yes.
How do you go from a 3.5% invalid rate?
You should go to 10. You should go to 10. You should go to 10%. And I don't care how good the Democratic Party is. This is the key point in the stats people should understand. Same in Pennsylvania. The naked ballot situation is supposed to be 10%, particularly because you had more marginal voters, people that didn't vote that often, actually doing this. The same thing across the country. This is the heart of it, that they had this in Pennsylvania. It's 2.6 million. Even their top forecast was 2 million. 2.6 million. We can't get any readout on the kill rate. And what is the kill rate right now in Georgia, as you know it? It's 0.5%, it's 1/2 of
1% is the kill rate, right? 1/2 of 1%. 2018, 3.5% with 50 times less mail-in ballots. I mean, they had 1,200,000 mail-in ballots in Georgia out of a total of 5 million people that voted. Steve, you can do math without an abacus. That's 25%. You got 25% of the ballots came by mail, where in 2018 it was only 5%. Now you got 25% coming by mail, and you're going to tell me that there was only 0.5% invalid rate, and now the Secretary of State Republican is not allowing the signatures to be checked or anything else, which is totally within his purview. We had a rally yesterday on the Capitol Square led by warriors, Jenny Beth Martin, Debbie Dooley. I was a speaker there. We had about 150 people demanding that you get a legitimate recount. Meantime, Governor Brian Kemp, AWOL. In fact, there was a chant going on there, where's Kemp? Where's Kemp? He's AWOL. Now he says has to quarantine for COVID. This is outrageous. No leadership from this governor whatsoever, who owes his job to Trump and his supporters. AWOL, not on the scene. You got Jeff Duncan, the establishment lieutenant governor, trying to protect his butt, going on CNN saying, there's nothing to see here, there is no fraud. How do you know there isn't any fraud if you don't check for the fraud? How do you know that? You have no earthly idea.
John, I have a big question, because when you look at this compromise settlement agreement and release, there are two parties to this. Raffensperger is one of those parties. I would imagine that he is bound by this document as well. So if he is not following the procedures set out here in just the spring of this year to confirm the signatures, then it seems to me this guy needs to be pulled out of his job tomorrow or today.
Well, the two incumbent senators called on him to resign in a very terse statement. Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, both of which not known for being rabble-rousers, if you will. I mean, they called on Tuesday for him to resign. So did the chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia, and as did many who are in the party that were identified to be with the establishment, have come out and said, "Look, we've just had it. You can't go forward with this guy." But
John, hang over a second. Can you stay over for the next segment? We're going to finish this hour with you. I got other questions about,
of course,
establishment people. John Fredericks has shifted the flag of the John Fredericks Radio Network to Georgia. This is how important Georgia is. Remember, folks, in this rally today and the Stop the Steal, the support of President Trump, there's zero back down. You know, Politico's got stories of people around the president. Hey, Sunshine Patriots and Summer Soldiers, they're all going to burn off. We got that. Not a problem. We got this. It's happening. And that's why you see the media is a little quiet today, right? They're going to start piling on a little while, but they're a little quiet. We're going to turn with John Fredericks in Georgia next.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
We're going to go back to John Fredericks in Atlanta, but we've got some great footage. When we get the footage up, look at that. That's the footage right now of what's happening here in Washington, D.C., down at Freedom Plaza. We're going to have Ben Bergquam and the team of Real America's Voice down there, Fog City Midge, the entire team down there. But I want to go back. Let's keep that footage up. Look at this. Wow. This is Stop the Steal. This is an outpouring, self-organizing, no money, just people showing up to support the president. President Trump has already done a drive-by, right, with his MAGA hat on. So folks out there understand, there are patriots down for the fight. We don't care about the summer soldiers. We don't care about the Sunshine Patriots. It doesn't matter. We're not holding it against them. Understand, people have priorities in life and got to do things. Our priority is saving this republic and saving the Constitution, and we're throwing down hard on this. I'm not going to back up an inch. Want to go down to, let's keep that footage up. Look at that. That is massive right there, right?
You know what I see in that video, and people who are on radio probably care, there are a multitude of Republic of Vietnam flags out there, and there's a big Vietnamese population in Washington, D.C. But what it tells me is this is a movement that understands the fear of communism and socialism, and they are out in the streets, man.
You got New Federal State. We're going to do the Chinese version. It's incredible. These people have lived under the boot of communism, understand what they're fighting for. Let's go to John Frederick. John, it's pretty amazing here in Washington, D.C. today. Very, very moving, this outpouring of support for the president. And people got to understand, Biden, these guys, hey, until they put their shoulder will and help us get to the bottom of this, he's never going to be considered anything legitimate, legal, anything. This is, President Trump won this election on November 3rd, and and 72 million people are not going to back off. I don't care how many phony polls they do. No, not one person at 72 million is going to believe this. And I think a lot of people that voted for Biden are not going to believe this. Get us up to date. Here's a question. Are you saying now, I think this is important, you're saying there's actually people in the Republican apparatus that are leaders down there that voted for Trump, they're outraged. Are they going to start demanding? Because right now, what the media is positioning this is that, hey, the Republican leadership down there gave the Trump, this is a typical Trump movement. All they do is whine. All they do is complain. All they do is think of conspiracy theories. They gave these guys everything they wanted. They wanted to recount. They got their recount, and now they got to whine about something else, right? And you got John Fredericks and Jenny Beth Martin and the War Room guys and, Corey Lewandowski, and now you got Linwood. All they're going to do is whine about this. So are Republicans down there prepared to hold the governor, the lieutenant governor, and particularly this disastrous Secretary of State accountable?
Yes, and the main thing is you've got the chairman of the Republican Party, David Schaefer, who is 100% behind this. That's key number one. You've also got establishment state senators like Senator Brandon Beach from North Fulton County, who came on my show for an hour and basically said he's had it with this whole thing. So there's a growing number of people. You got the two senators that called on Raffensperger to resign, but we need to give people a voice. That's the key. And if I could just say, Steve, I've moved my headquarters here to Atlanta for the foreseeable future, right through at least January 7th. We're launching the Georgia Star, which is going to be an affiliate of the Star Group and my Virginia Star. That launches on Wednesday. I've got 3 full-time reporters on the ground that we have hired right now. I mean, this is a unique opportunity. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which is the kingpin of fake news, has no competition. I want to encourage everybody, go to the Georgia Star. It launches 12:01 a.m. Wednesday the 18th. Sign up for the free newsletter every day. Go to thegeorgiastar.com and you're going to be good to go. We're also trying to get a radio station here. I'm close to that. But if you give people, here's what I've learned here in a week, Steve and Jack. If you give the legislators, the representatives, the Trump supporters in government, the Republicans, if you give them an outlet to get fair coverage, they will come out and speak the truth. One of the problems is they don't have that until we came aboard. That's why I'm getting everybody here on my show in our headquarters at the Intercontinental Hotel in Buckhead. This thing, the goal of Lynn Wood's lawsuit, here's the goal so everybody understands it clearly. The short-term goal is to right away stop the fraudulent recount. Stop it now. Second thing is start it back up when you can. Match the absentee ballots to authenticate the signatures, the address. Do they live in the state? Have they moved? That's the authentication process. That's the goal of Lynn Wood's suit. Without that, the recount is a farce because they're just recounting potentially fraudulent ballots. That's what the argument's over now. And you're now getting rank and file Republicans stepping up and saying, hey, this doesn't make any sense. No leadership, though, at all by the governor. He's just been silent. He's in quarantine. He's not saying anything. And so that's really what the battle is. And it's splitting the party in half. And the risk is for the two senators running on January 5th, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue in the runoff, is that if they don't get this fixed, and you alluded to it the other day, Steve, it's scary, but a lot of these people are going to say the hell with it, and they're going to stay home on January 5th. That's what Perdue and Loeffler are scared to death of. That's why they called Tuesday for Raffensperger to be ousted or to resign.
By the way, the Republican establishment here, Mitch McConnell, these guys, they got to have not just Trump's back, they got to have this movement's back, because it's not a foregone conclusion they're going to show up. If they show up, Loeffler and Perdue win, no question, right? But you got to give a little something to the effort here, and that is you got to have the back. This is everything right now. Remember, we said on the show, the 14th of December, 2020 is the key date. We talked about this for months. John Fredericks, and I want to say one other thing before I let John go. This is about action, action, action. John Frederick, I call him up over a weekend. We talk after I did a radio hit. In 24 hours, we had this show up. This show is now the 18th biggest podcast in the nation. Besides being on John Fredericks, one of the biggest radio shows in the country, TV, millions of viewers every day, and all they try to do is kill it. Between the Chinese Communist Party doing DDoS attacks and the social media oligarchs trying to shut it down, John Fredericks, he says, hey, I think Georgia's going to be a thing. John Fredericks moves the whole operation down there. He's launching websites. He's launching newspapers. He's buying a radio station. This is about action, action, action. John Fredericks, thank you very much. You're an American patriot, sir.
We got your back, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. John Fredericks, that is about getting stuff done, okay? This is about taking action. He's an entrepreneur, puts his capital at risk, puts his brand at risk, puts himself at risk. Okay, we're going to go to the rally. It's already humongous. Also going to get Chinese voices in here about their rally today. Brandon Strzok. Everybody is in D.C. Gathering of the Tribes today in Washington, D.C.